Are your kids always asking for screens? And do you find yourself asking the questions, how much screen time should a kid have? Well, a lot of people are asking me that question. I'm Nicholeen Peck. I'm a parenting expert, author, and speaker all over the world about parenting and what makes really good, strong, self-governed families. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how much screen time children really should have. I've never met a child that doesn't like screens. In fact, I think all children at some point or another ask for screens if they've been exposed to them. Why is that? Well, it's because screen time actually lulls the brain and stops the hard task of thinking if the person allows that hard task of thinking to be stopped. So why would we ever not want to think? Well, because it's hard work. In fact, thinking is one of the hardest things that we ever do. And sometimes it's really nice to just have someone do the thinking for us, just to tell us a story or take us on a journey that we don't have to do any work to go on. It kind of feeds our inner laziness just a little bit. But is it healthy? Is it healthy to turn our brains off or to turn them over to something else for extended periods of time? I always told my children that digital devices are tools, not toys. There is a difference between those things. In fact, if you were to carry a circular saw, say, in your pocket, you would never just whip it out willy-nilly all the time. You would use a lot of caution with that thing. There would be rules and parameters. There would be safety measures that you would take to make sure that that saw didn't hurt you or anybody else. Well, the same thing with other tools that we have, which are cell phones, tablets, computers, other screens and digital devices. They can be used for really great things, and I'm sure you know this. We watch things, we communicate with people, we learn things, we remind ourselves of things, we wake up in the morning because of them. There's so many things that we can use those devices for, but those devices can also use us. That's right, they can control us. If we become more casual in our relationship with devices and start thinking of them more as a toy or convenience, instead of as something that we're supposed to govern over, respect, and use safety parameters with to do actual work, then we run the risk of that thing taking control and working on us. So what type of work do you do on your devices? You write papers, you possibly do research, you send emails to people for communications, you might do your banking, stuff like that. Those are all things that show that the devices are meant to be tools. But I'm sure you can think of many other ways like social media and gaming and other time-wasting things that people do on these devices, which actually also show that many people think of them as toys as well. Well, it's important that your children understand the difference between a tool and a toy before they ever get the opportunity to be in charge of their own screen. In our family, we have a rule that a person does not get the opportunity to own a digital device unless they are self-governed. Well, what does self-governed mean? Self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So this means a person decides ahead of time, this is how I'll behave. So when it comes to a screen, they would say, this is how I want to interact with this tool. This is the amount of time I will use to have that interaction. This is how I'll check up with somebody else to make sure that I'm interacting well with this device. And then they take deliberate action. They stick to their time limit or to their action that they were going to be doing on the device, and then they're done. Unless a person knows self-mastery in other things, they're not usually ready to self-master themselves when it comes to their time with a screen, because that screen can suck them in so quickly. So we have determined that they have to be really good at what we call the 4 basic skills. These 4 basic skills that I teach in my Teaching Self-Government Parenting course are following instructions, accepting no answers, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. These are skills that they use in their communications with everyone. In fact, all people need these skills. They're basic, just adult skills. And if a person learns the skill sets to these 4 skills, that takes care of 99% of their behavior problems. If they are self-governing with those 4 skills the majority of the time, then we know that we can probably start to teach them how to self-govern when it comes to screens. In order to determine how much time a person needs or should have on screens or in front of a screen, we need to understand a little bit about the brain. So the front part of the brain, the part that does all of the logical processing, also is a key player in discernment for the person. So when you get in front of a screen and you're allowing the screen to take you on a journey, that actually engages primarily your emotional part of the brain, which is in the middle. It just takes your emotions up and down, around and through, and you don't have to think very much if you don't want to. So it's really easy to disengage this discerning part of the brain. The other night, my husband turned on a movie and the family all came down and ended up watching it. Now, we hadn't decided ahead of time what movie this would be. When I came down to the TV room, I realized this was a movie that I didn't really ever want to see and I didn't know much about. So I thought, well, I'll give it a chance. All the children are older. It's probably something that they can handle now, even though when this thing came out, I really didn't want any part of it. So we started watching the movie and I was just kind of getting sucked in for a minute, but my brain wasn't totally turning off because I kept thinking, do I really want to watch this? Do I really? And so there were a couple of key things that happened, a bad word that happened, and then shortly after there were some other things that happened related to what I call bloodlust or extreme violence. And I went, you know what? I cannot watch this. All of a sudden my brain it wasn't completely complacent yet because I wasn't sure I trusted the movie. And then it just told me no. So I had this discernment thing kick in. If I would not have questioned anything about the movie and just gone along for the ride, I'm not sure I would have had that moment where I said, no, we are not watching this, and turning it off. But that's what happened instead, because I did have discernment and I still was in that thinking part of my brain. So it's important for us to realize how the brain works, because if we are allowing our children to have a whole bunch of time in front of the screens, then we're actually allowing them to not discern. That means they won't be making decisions based on what's right and wrong very well. They won't be thinking clearly. They'll just be going along for the journey and buying into whatever ideas or story happens to be presented to them at the time, which could be good or it could not be. Either way though, the fact that it's so passive and that they don't have to do any thinking during that time means that there really shouldn't be much time spent in that sort of a zoned out zone, right? So how much screen time, then, does a child really need or should they have in order to be in that healthy zone? Well, there's no real hard and fast rule. I suppose I feel like I would be a bad parenting expert if I told you this is exactly how many hours for this age, because I don't know your child. And I don't know your family life, and I don't know what they're studying and what sources you're using for information. I don't know your business at home. There's a lot of things I don't know. But I can tell you my rule of thumb. Less is better. Less is better. Go for way less. Less than you think is healthy is usually a good gauge. So if you think, well, a person could watch a couple of hours a day, then go less. Go less than that. Go maybe to a half hour a day. Really go down. Now, our family, we made a rule in our family that we were not going to be about screens. We had computers and we had a TV, but that didn't mean we wanted to be in front of it all the time. So before we even had the type of cell phones that had, smart devices built into them, and that could be their own TVs and their own screens, we made a rule, and we stuck to that rule throughout our entire parenting years with our children. And the rule was this, that we would not watch television or movies unless they were educational movies that were part of our homeschool, because I was a homeschool mom. So occasionally maybe we might watch a documentary on the Byzantine Empire or on Thomas Edison or something like that. And those videos might be watched during the school day, sometimes as part of a lesson or something. But other than that, the only other time that we would watch a show is on Friday night. As a family, we watched 1 or 2 movies together, and everyone looked forward to this time. So if my children came to me and said, "Oh, Mom, can I watch a movie?" I would always answer with, "Well, what day is it?" "Oh, it's Tuesday." Yes, remember, our family only watches movies on Friday. Then they would turn to their friend and they'd say, "See, I told you." Because, of course, the friend was wanting to watch a movie at our house. And we never watch television, network television, unless it's like the time of the Olympics. I mean, really, truly, there are a couple of events like the Olympics that are big like that we watched on network television, and that was it, which is a total irony because our family actually was on TV. I've been on how many news programs, and we aren't actually a TV watching family. Now, you don't have to be as weird as us, okay? I know that's really strange, especially how most families function. But try to think what less means for you. What is less than you think is healthy? I know you've got to have something in your mind right now that you're thinking, well, I was thinking they could probably watch this one show a day or whatever. And so then go less. Maybe it's only one show every other day, or something like that, but just make yourself push it to less than you think. Don't be thinking in the direction that is, how much can I use it? How much can I put them in front of it before there's problems? No matter when or how long you put a person in front of a screen, they will stop fairly quickly doing their own critical thinking, and they will become passive. And we don't want people in that position very long. Our children need to be confident and empowered, which means they need to do a lot of their own thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. And they need to be talking to us during that time of figuring and discerning, not getting their information from a screen. One of the benefits of having less screen time is actually, over the long term, your children are better behaved. I don't know if you realize that. Now, at first, when they're breaking away from screen time, there might be a little anxiety, some change in habits, some frustration, even some boredom, because they don't know what to do. But over time, they become much more content, much more constructive, much more creative, and communicative too. So this is a good thing for their overall health and behaviors. If you've liked this video, I think you're going to love my next video, which is called How Do You Deal with Temper Tantrums?